Hey guys, it's Jeff. Welcome to Jew Whiskey. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below. And with that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Ardbeg Corryvreckan. Stick around. So this is a whiskey that I'm shocked that I haven't reviewed yet. I started this channel, I believe, in the summer of 1937, and I've covered a lot of whiskeys here. I've covered a lot of Ardbegs, but I've never touched on the Corryvreckan, which is odd. Especially since this is one of the whiskeys that I latched onto pretty early in my journey. It was this and the Uigeadail. I probably bought more bottles of the Uigeadail because I liked it more, but I love this one too, and I had a lot of this. But that was back then. I can't say I've had too much of this recently. I'm guessing my last bottle was like at least 5 years ago. So it's been a minute. Our whiskey here is cask strength. It's famous for being just a straightforward, punchy Ardbeg. There's no fancy cask play involved. There's no wine finish or anything like that. So it's a good one for the purists. The website says this was matured in ex-bourbon casks. I think there's also some French oak involved here. The website also says that this won World's Best Single Malt back in 2010. Which was around the time that I was really falling in love with this stuff. And yeah, good for them. But 2010 was a good while ago. And Ardbeg today is in a very different place than Ardbeg was back at that time. And I'll leave it at that. Except no, I won't. It was massively better. For me, the Ardbeg of today is good stuff, but it's also wildly inconsistent. If you look at a bottle like the 10, some of them are fantastic, others are kind of disappointing, so I find that one kind of batchy. I think the Wee Beastie is one of the better, more consistent, and most affordable whiskeys from their line, so I do like that one. The Uigeadail is also batchy, although that's more intentional. It's released in batches, but on the whole, it's not nearly as consistent as it once was. What else? The Anoa, which I'm sure I'm pronouncing wrong. Ano, whatever. That one is one I'll be reviewing soon, and it is... Yep. There's also about 74,000 special releases that the brand has put out. Some are fantastic, some are just okay. Most of them are overpriced. So, point is, Ardbeg is kind of a mixed bag. But generally speaking, it's a very singular profile, and I am a fan. Anyway, back to our Corryvreckan here. This one is something of a legend. It's a favorite to many. I'd say this one belongs in the annals of history as one of the OG cask strength peated whiskeys. What's that? Annals. No, that I don't think. So it's been at least 5 years, and I am kind of curious to come back to this one to see where I land on it. So let's jump into our review. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. Good specs here. This one comes in at 57.1% ABV. It's non-chill filtered, and our color is natural. For presentation, I like that Ardbegs kind of maintain their aesthetic for quite a while, and they're not like tweaking the look every few years like some brands out there. That being said, it's not my favorite look. Maybe I'm just too used to it. I've seen it too much, but it's a solid look, and I'll give it 3.5 out of 5 for presentation. It does say non-chill filtered, but it doesn't say natural color, even though it is, which always baffles me. We get some basic tasting notes. The box is kind of fun. I would say on the whole, the whiskey industry has moved away from stories and legends, but not these guys. The back of this box gives us an entire odyssey of how this whiskey got its name. We have a prince and a princess who are star-crossed lovers. We've got an adventure, we've got whirlpools, we've got goddesses, we've got reincarnation. It's riveting. So our info is okay, but it could be better. Our tasting notes are basic, but they are there. The story's something, and the look, while not my favorite, is definitely an iconic look. Overall, it's fine. So I didn't add any water to this. On the nose, we get some youth. I get some black pepper here. There's some smoked ham. We have that classic, almost metallic Ardbeg sharpness. There's some honey in here. There's a kind of cardboard-like note in here. I get some star fruit. I get some yellow apples, like golden delicious apples. There's definitely some brine in this. Very powerful, very intense. On the palate and finish, this gives us an oily texture. It's sweet and savory. I get honey, I get salt, I get brine. There is some tar in here. There's some dark berries. It's fishy. I get lemon cough drops in here. I get herbal cough drops in here, kind of like eucalyptus. We have a long finish lingering on tobacco and black pepper. So at first I intended to compare this to previous bottles that I've had, but like I said, that was more than 5 years ago and I have the memory of a goldfish, so I'll just be looking at this for what it is today, which is probably the best way to review something anyway. So just in terms of the whiskey I've got with me here today, it's okay. I don't love it. I think it's decent. Like I said, I can't give you any precise reasons why this is different or maybe not quite as good as previous batches, but I can tell you that I used to enjoy it a lot more. Maybe it's me that's changed, maybe it's the whiskey, probably both. So while this does give us some beautiful, intense flavors, it's also quite young. It's younger than I remember. And while it does deliver on its promise of giving us a bold, straightforward Ardbeg, I just don't find it as interesting as, let's say, the Uigeadail, for example. Now, to be fair, I've always liked the Uigeadail more. That was true back then, but I would say that today, I prefer the Uigeadail by, let's say, a more substantial margin. And the thing is, I'm usually the guy that doesn't want any heavy cask influence. I like distillate-driven whiskeys, I'm a bit of a purist in that sense. But as far as I'm concerned, the Uigeadail, with its sherry influence, gives us a little bit more complexity, a little bit more dimension. I find it a more interesting whiskey. On a completely unrelated note, one thing I did find with this whiskey is that it's one of the few cask strength whiskeys where I prefer it without water. When I add water, I feel like it gets a little bit simpler, and if I drink it neat, it has more dark berries, almost some cocoa type flavors, and just darker, heavier flavors on the whole. It just feels like a more substantial whiskey. So, play around with water as you may, but I would recommend trying this one neat. That's how I prefer it. Anyway, yeah, this is a good whiskey, but I can't say I'm connecting with it. And I'm not going to give it a great score. I'm going to land on 83, which is definitely lower than what I wanted to score it. I'm sure it's lower than what a lot of you guys wanted me to score it. I know this one has its fans, but I'm not there. I'm not there. I think for roughly the same price, the Uigeadail is the better buy. I think the bottles of Corryvrecken that we used to get were more interesting, more engaging, more complex, and I don't love the price tag on this one, which brings us to value. I think this whiskey is too expensive. It's not a bad whiskey. Cask strength is great, but there are a lot of no age stated cask strength single malt Islay whiskeys out there. And from a value perspective, I think you're better off going for a lot of these mystery malts, many of which are Caol Ila. Now, if you insist on Ardbeg, sure, this one works. But if you look at brands like Scarabus, Portiskeag, Smokehead, Finlagan, all of these brands give us cask strength options for substantially less money. Now, granted, they're not all quite as good as this one, but as far as I'm concerned, a couple of them actually can compete on this level. And again, they're about half the price, at least they are in my market. So from a value perspective, I would recommend those far before I would recommend this one. But again, if you insist on Ardbeg, go for it. Alright, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help support the channel, I do have the Patreon. Otherwise, you can like, comment, and subscribe. Always appreciated. Of course, I do want to hear from you. I think today's review is going to be a little bit controversial. I know there's a lot of fans of the Corryvrecken out there. Tell me what you think of the Corryvrecken. Do you like it? Do you think it's better, worse than the Uigeadail? Let me know down below. Also, down below in the comments, you can let me know what you want to see me review next, and I'll keep it in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.